So, I have a foggy memory from about 9 years ago. It was after I played Undertale for the first time, but before we had any additional context or theories that Deltarune brought with it. So, naturally, I was watching a video speculating about Gaster, because of course I was, that was all any of us were doing. Now, I don't remember what the video was called or who made it, and I don't want to direct any negativity their way for an old-ass video that has a decent chance of being a mental amalgam of multiple poorly remembered videos. But the thing I do remember about the video was the uploader's claim about Alphys, and they talked about how she was a bad scientist, that she lied about creating Mettaton as an artificial soul when he was actually just a ghost fused with a robotic shell, which meant that she was undeserving of her position, that the failures of the DT program were her fault. They attributed everything cool in the lab to Gaster and claimed that the only reason Alphys was able to figure out how to extract determination at all was through copying his homework. Never mind that there are numerous in-game inventions that are truly incredible that can be solely attributed to Alphys, like the cell phone jetpack, or the extra-dimensional storage system, both of Mettaton's bodies, that tile-changing puzzle, the hot fridge, just to name a few. Never mind that literally nobody knew how to create an artificial soul, not even the illustrious Dr. Gaster. That's why they were all still sealed in the underground in the first place. Now, at the time, I wouldn't have said Alphys was one of my favorite characters. I didn't hate her or anything, I just didn't find her as compelling as the literally non-existent character Gaster because I was stupid. Over time, as I've gotten older and I've gotten better at understanding and appreciating interestingly flawed characters, I've grown to really like Alphys. I'm a sucker for the underdog, what can I say? But even back then, those claims about Alphys being not that smart and a bad scientist, they kind of bothered me. Not to mention her being annoying was used as justification for declaring her mistakes as irredeemable when literal child murderer Asgore is right there. And I also love Asgore. Don't take this as slander, but you know, it was Undertale. There were a lot of bad takes back then. Sans is a child because he's short. Papyrus is a child because he's a little baby cinnamon roll. Toriel is evil. Kara made me do it. Blah, blah, blah. We were all children, and we didn't know how to engage with media intelligently. So, it was easy enough to set those frustrated feelings aside. Until, rather suddenly, they all came flooding back. Let's move forward in time. So, present day, I'm listening to a Deltarune video, and I'm going about my day. And once again, I am not going to name any names or anything, especially this time, because this was a very throwaway mark, and I don't think they meant anything by it. They were just talking about the similarities between the Deltarune characters and their Undertale counterparts, and they essentially implied that Alphys was clearly smart in Deltarune, because she's a teacher, but probably not as smart as she was in Undertale. And I got kind of mad. Not at them, again, because it was a very aside remark, but I basically constructed a straw man in my head in that moment to be mad at, to be like, why? Why do you keep underestimating this woman? Why is it that Undyne's insane strength, Sans' meta jokes, and teleportation and space folding and Toriel and Asgore's freaking divorce can carry over no problem, but Alphys being smart? No. She couldn't make anything in Undertale, and she can't possibly be important in Deltarune, and that's crazy. That's a crazy thing to think, because Undyne being Superwoman in a world without magic is seen as being more plausible than just being smart, which is a thing that real people can really do in the real world. And then I made a theory out of spite. The important thing you gotta understand here is that I truly am working backwards. When I say theory, It's because I'm trying to hit that YouTube algorithm sweet spot and ensure this video being made by a dead channel with an average view count of 70 will actually be seen by anyone. I decided the conclusion I wanted to reach and then scrambled to find any information I could to hold up as evidence, but this is, for all intents and purposes, a wish more than a theory. I do think the evidence I found is decently compelling, so if nothing else, I hope you find my unhinged caterwauling entertaining. If you like this video at all, consider sharing it. My channel is no longer monetized since it has been largely inactive for so long, but I'm really proud of this I'm really proud of this funny thumbnail I drew, so, you know, hype or whatever if you want. In the Undertale 10th anniversary livestream, Toby Fox talked quite a bit about Alphys. He mused on the fact that the constant social media updates and the way Alphys texts is probably the aspect of Undertale that aged the least well. It was so steeped in the way nerd culture was online at the time. He also said, however, that despite this, he's glad he wrote Alphys the way he did. She's not conventionally attractive and might be kind of annoying, but she is a genius, and when pushed to her limit, she is capable of hidden strength. He also went out of his way to compare her to Sans and made a point to highlight their similarities and their relationship with each other. And personally, I think all of this was a pretty big deal, but what does it mean? Toby talking about Alphys in this way could be him priming us for further character exploration in Deltarune, or it could just be a creator gently pushing back against bad fandom takes. We saw something very similar with Toriel and how he talked about really wanting to write a mother character in an RPG who's more than just your mom, and who can have complexity and nuance and make mistakes while still loving you. Which, you know, I'm sure that won't go over this fan base's heads. So yeah, again, this might be Toby choosing to shine a spotlight on her for Deltarune reasons, or it could very well just be him wanting to explain more about one of his more controversial characters. So let's talk about Sans. And, you know, I kind of didn't want to. Like, I love Sans, but, you know, he's gotten a lot of the spotlight for a long time, and this is about Alphys. But in order for my next point to make sense, I really do have to. So, Sans Undertale is almost certainly from the world of Deltarune. Most people in the community already know this theory, and if you don't, I'll keep this explanation as brief as I can. In Undertale, Sans seems to be a lot more familiar with the surface than he should be. He recognizes Frisk as a human instantly, knows all about human food and talks about it with the regulars at Grillby's, and he knows what the sun is. His fight dialogue from that other route references timelines. He bleeds like Susie and also uses her get dunked on line. His door looks like the Dark World fast travel doors. His basement had a mysterious machine and blueprints and a badge and a photo album with pictures of people you don't know and a drawing that says don't forget. His dialogue, when you save him from Azrael, says, just give up. I did. Why even try? You'll never see him again. And he has a song called It's Raining Somewhere Else, and Deltarune has the same song, minus Sans' leitmotif, that is called The Place Where It Rained. Blah blah, Gaster Blaster, blah blah, darker yet darker, he's from Deltarune. There's so much evidence that I struggled to consider it a theory and not just obviously canon. Okay, so why does that matter? Well, because there is exactly one person who seems to know the story about Sans, and almost certainly Papyrus as well, based on the Q&A dialogue, and the fact that they both seem to just appear from nowhere, according to QC. And that person is, you guessed it, Alphys. Sans and Alphys know each other. Really well, in fact. But they're weird and coy about it, and they seem to try and obfuscate the details when around other people. It is very likely that Alphys trusted Sans with the information about the amalgamates. He is the one who bought the dog food for Endogeny that is sitting in her lab, and he makes jokes about dogs being in the lab in one of Papyrus's phone calls. Papyrus has a line about Sans leaving behind slime. And while that could just be Sans being a gross slob, it could also be from the slimy, melty amalgamates he is helping her to take care of. And similarly, it is very likely that she is the one who tried to help him return to his original world. It's played off as a joke, but she mentions researching other dimensions, and she knows that there are other worlds out there. The blueprints in Sans' labs might have wingdings on them, but it might also be Alphys' notoriously bad handwriting. Neither of them could fix the machine, no matter how hard they tried, reads Toby Fox's old tweet. So, let's break this down. Something happened to Sans and Papyrus that booted them from Deltarune to Undertale, and that something might have also messed with Papyrus's memories? Papyrus is definitely the shakiest aspect of this whole thing, because he definitely would have seen the sun and known what human was if he were from Deltarune. But he mentioned the green grass in the Q&A, but he doesn't bleed. So let's just say, for now, that he is also from Deltarune, because I really can't stand the idea of being the brothers being switched or separated. It's too sad, man. Regardless, in all of that, the person who Sans decides to go to for help, the person who Mr. Sneaky Secrety Sans the person who Mr. Sneaky Secrety Sans the Skeleton himself decides to trust with this information is the school teacher who bought ramen like a mobster in his old timeline? Why? Is it just because she's the royal scientist here? Was it purely a resource thing? It seems unlikely to me that he would know that he could trust her just purely based on her position. I think the reason Sans knows he can trust Alphys is because, just like in the Queen Alphys ending of Undertale, I think that there will be a point in Deltarune where Alphys is pushed to her limit and is forced to grow stronger because of it. Maybe she'll evade in evacuating the town when the roaring strikes, just as she did in that ending. Maybe she'll use her smarts to help her heroes crack the shelter code. I'm not sure what she'll do, but I am confident she'll do something that will make Sans consider her to be a person he can rely on when he has no one else to go to. And in regards to the shelter, she certainly has motivation to try and help the Fun Gang get inside. If she learns that Undyne is down there with the horrors, I'm sure she'll be desperate to get involved in whatever way she can. There is another reason why I'd like Alphys to have this sort of character arc in Deltarune. I think Alphys needs to come into her own, because while I will defend this lizard endlessly, there is a point I absolutely must concede. Alphys is a bad teacher. If you already weren't a huge fan of Alphys or were otherwise pretty much neutral to her, it might not have bothered you all that much to see that she isn't exactly thriving in her position as a high school teacher. And honestly, even to a fan, it makes sense. Teaching, especially teaching teenagers, requires confidence and good leadership, not just intelligence. And while we know that Alphys can gain confidence and that she is seemingly a very competent queen in that neutral route ending, she isn't there yet. She's too fixated on being cool and relatable to establish any firm boundaries. She clearly cares, but is too nervous to do anything about it. And I think that nothing highlights her shortcomings as a teacher more than her relationship with Susie. This one hurts, man. A not very fun fact is that a lot of time, if there's something going on with a kid, the one who's probably going to notice is their teacher. My teacher was the first person to realize I needed glasses because I was always squinting at the whiteboard. Teachers are often the ones who are going to recognize when a student might have a learning disability, and teachers should also be able to recognize the signs of when a student might need help. I really don't want to speculate extensively about Susie's home life, not because we don't have evidence for it, just because it's a really sensitive, serious topic. But we have a teenager who seems to have an unusual fixation with food, behavioral issues, clothes that are in poor condition, and who seems to be habitually tardy. These are all very obvious signs that maybe something isn't so good, and that maybe some adult figure should try and look into it and actually take some proactive action instead of letting this poor kid slip through the cracks. But Alphys doesn't do any of that because she's afraid of Susie. And the sad thing is, Susie is also afraid of Alphys. These two avoid each other and can't communicate with each other, and it makes me sad. Susie wants to get into the shelter so bad, and here's someone who would absolutely help her, but they don't know how to talk to each other. Alphys is so insecure that she's afraid of getting made fun of by a kid. And Susie thinks Alphys is going to expel her not just from school, but also from everything. I need to see these two overcome their personal fear and baggage and actually talk, because I think they'd make a great team and could really help each other. I want Alphys to become the great teacher I know she can be. Alphys being a teacher parallels her position in Undertale as a royal scientist in that, in both instances, both metatextually and in universe, she was overshadowed by someone else who did the job better. Alphys may work faster, but Dr. Gaster wouldn't act to follow, says one of the goners. For all my whining about Gaster stealing Alphys' spotlight, the dude invented the core that powers the entire underground, and is probably the reason why we can play Deltarune at all if you subscribe to device theory. Meanwhile, in Deltarune, Alphys is the replacement of Gerson fucking Boom, an in-universe J.R.R. Tolkien. Teacher, mentor, historian, the coolest guy to have ever lived and unlived. And the only teacher Susie ever had that made her not feel stupid. It sucks, man. What an act to follow indeed, always walking in the footsteps of a legend. Alphys needs to be allowed to come into her own and stand on her own 2 feet. And that's all I got. See ya.